like to share with you another Read Aloud ritual. If you've watched any of my other videos on Read Aloud rituals, you know that I first got the idea for this from this book by Mary Lee Hahn called Reconsidering Read Aloud. After reading this book and learning that term, Read Aloud ritual, I started scouring my classroom, finding all of the rituals that I had and being really intentional about incorporating more. Since I've been out of the classroom and to have the opportunity to go into lots of teachers' classrooms around the country, I look for Read Aloud rituals that other teachers are using. So this one that I'm sharing today was not one from my classroom. It was actually a teacher from Vermont, and I love this idea. So I want you to think about Read Aloud as an opportunity to get more and more books in kids' hands. Every time you read aloud a book by an author, when you're finished, you can say, if you loved this author, guess what? This author has written all these other books. And if you have them in your classroom, make a basket of them and say, here's a basket of a whole bunch of books by this author that you might want to check out. You're not going to have time to read all those books to them, but by reading aloud one book and getting kids hooked, you just might get them hooked on that author. Or maybe it's a series book. So I loved to read the first book in a series. I used to start my school year the first couple of months just reading aloud different series books, but only reading aloud the very first book in the series. And then as soon as I finish that, get the kids hooked on it, then I pull out a basket that has all of the books in that series and say, if you loved this book, you might like to finish the series. So think about each read aloud as an opportunity to open up a whole world of other books to your students. Or maybe it's a topic. You read a book about one topic and say, if you loved this, then guess what? There's a whole bunch more books on this topic. Or maybe it's a genre. You introduce them to historical fiction, they fall in love with this book, and you say, you know what? There's a lot of other great historical fiction out there. I'll help you find it. So this idea is kind of builds on that. And I just am calling this Vote for a Chapter Book. I don't have any fancy name for it. So this is how it works. When you're getting ready to read a new chapter book to your students, instead of starting to read it, you're going to take 1 week to introduce 5 different books to your students. So on Monday, you read aloud just chapter 1 of one book. And I just collected some books here. I just pulled these off my shelf. So let's just say that on day 1, on Monday, you're going to read aloud the first chapter from Fish in a Tree. And then on Tuesday, you're going to pick another book. So maybe you're reading Edward's Eyes. And on the next day, you're reading the first chapter of Pictures in Hollis Woods. Hopefully you're seeing a pattern here. These are books with strong characters that have some great themes in them. So, and just great storytelling. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you have 5 books and you're reading just one chapter of each of those books. So the ritual is on Friday, you line up the 5 books and students vote for their choice of the read aloud. On Monday, the following Monday, you're going to unveil which book won the vote. And you're going to have lots of disappointment because not everyone's book is going to win. But because you have just introduced 5 new books to your students by reading aloud the first chapter, you have scaffolded for them these books, maybe made them accessible to students who otherwise either wouldn't have chosen these books or it wouldn't have been accessible because you have introduced them to maybe some of the background, some of the historical context or the authors or the writing style. So you can unveil which book won and say, this is going to be our new class read aloud, but who would like to be the first person to read this book, this book, this book, this book? You might even want to have sign-up sheets for a waiting list, because no doubt after you have read aloud the first chapter of 5 books and 4 of them haven't been selected, you know that your students are going to want to continue reading those books and they're going to pass those around. So that's just another way, an additional way to use Read Aloud to get more books into students' hands, not just the one that you're reading aloud to them. So I hope that works for you, and try it out. Let me know how it goes. And as always, if you have other reading rituals or read aloud rituals, I'd love for you to share them either in the comments below the video or on a blog post or by emailing me.